Um, my name's Keil. I kind of been the mind behind this series, I suppose. Um, yeah, and I wanted to take the opportunity of this final episode to kind of talk about some of my own experiences as a member of the trans community, as well as I don't know, just a bit of a reflection on the series. Uh, Talk about some of the things that I learned, that we've learned, because honestly, it has been a period of pretty massive change in my life personally. Um, and I feel like I owe a big part of that to this series, and kind of the confidence and the inspiration it's given me to proceed with some things in my own life. So yeah, I just wanted to have a little chat about that. At the start of the series, it started as just kind of this idea of representation in media. Specifically, there were aspects about my identity that I feel like aren't seen a lot in media, at least not from a super positive light. Things are pretty rocky right now for the trans community, specifically in the States. And I mean, it's kind of scary to think that those kinds of things could percolate up north. And so, yeah, it kind of, this project stemmed from a, a need to fill some gaps in our media, because I feel like a lot of the times when you see stories about trans folk, sometimes the joy is missing a little bit, because unfortunately it's a difficult time, and obviously the stories that get a lot of coverage are the ones that are pretty frustrating. So I really wanted to take the opportunity of this project to shed some light on the trans community here in Edmonton, share some stories, and really just kind of create a sense of community, hopefully through this show. And I mean, I know for me personally, that has definitely happened. This has been a huge time of just feeling immersed in a large aspect of my identity that sometimes doesn't really get nourished, and I'm really putting in the effort to put in the effort, I guess. I'm really making a conscious effort to feed that side of my personality, because it's a very important one to me. And I feel like this project has given me, I won't say the freedom to do that, but definitely the confidence. So when I started this project, actually when I submitted the pitch for it, I guess, that was kind of the first time I'd openly referred to myself as a member of the trans community. I had identified as non-binary, using they them pronouns for years before that. But I never really identified as a member of the trans community. I think my knowledge and kind of my perspective of it was very narrow. And yeah, and then through doing this project, it's really given me a lot of kinship with the community, I think. It's been a huge opportunity to like just like not feel othered because of my transness and my trans identity. Like it because unfortunately, like that can be how it happens sometimes. So this opportunity to really surround myself with other trans folk and just listen to their stories, listen to their like their egg crack moments, or how they deal with pronouns, or just all the different ways that this part of their identity has like permeated their life and their lifestyle, and that's been fantastic. So I personally realized or noticed, I guess, my queerness. It was quite a few years ago, but it wasn't something that like I knew growing up so much. It's a discovery I made a little later in life. And when I initially realized that that's how I identify, I was very hesitant to call myself queer, to call myself part of the queer community, the alphabet mafia, however you want to say it, the 2S LGBTQIA+. Yeah, I just... And it wasn't because I didn't want to be a part of it. It was because I felt like this was a community that had gone through so many hardships and made so many huge strides towards like them just being able to live their most authentic lives. And I hadn't earned that. And like I now realize that that's not exactly a great way of looking at it. But yeah, at the time I was really hesitant to identify as like a member of the community because I didn't think like that I'd suffered enough for it, I guess. Like I thought there was an inherent like, you have to go through just real hardships and like earn the badge kind of a thing, which is completely incorrect. You don't. In fact, the community is super welcoming. Imagine that. And really, like, from my experience with the queer community, like, it is a community of very like open-armed people who just want you to be your best version of yourself. And generally, any way they can help, they're gonna help. I had experimented a little bit with makeup, but never to a point where I like felt comfortable wearing it or comfortable like with what I put together. I feel like I always went for a very bold look that maybe was working against me in the end. But yeah, so like that's episode 1 was huge, a fantastic experience for me. Not only because I got to chat with Juliana and hear about their experience being queer and identifying as non-binary. Juliana's concept of their gender being this like amorphous cloud really like struck a chord with me, because I don't know that I'd ever heard someone like describe it that way before, but it also just rung very true for me because I kind of go through these different, I wouldn't even call them phases, movements. That makes it sound like it's a bowel thing. I find for myself personally that my gender has like ebbs and flows. I think the consistency for me is that even on the days when I'm feeling like I just want to like, I just want gender to not exist. I just want that to not be something that anyone has to worry about. You know, we just kind of, if we could just start out life as like these amorphous blobs, and then slowly add to ourselves and create who we want to be. And like, if we want to, you know, attach a gender to it, great. If not, it doesn't matter. We started out without one. There are days when I want that. But even on those days, I do recognize that for me personally, I think I would feel a lot more comfortable coming at this whole experience from the other side of the spectrum. So I think that's kind of what like made any kind of decision for me with my own like gender discovery. And while at the end I'm not thrilled with the look I put together, it's a lot. It's a lot. I think at one point I used like eyeshadow as blush, and I think at that point it was just, it was what it was. But that being said, it helped me kind of get over a hurdle that I've had for a little while, which is like makeup. And like, what am I doing? How do I do it? What do I do with it? Because I think my idea with makeup before was like, oh, it's got to be this whole full face thing. Like, you've got to really just go wild with it. And like, I love it when people do that. I'm envious of anyone who has that skill and knowledge. But I'm not there. I've been thinking a lot about my chat with Mel in regards to like affirming things that you can do for yourself. Because Mel, at the time that we had that interview, they were working at a like tattoo piercing body modification studio. And I thought it was really interesting what they said about how, you know, people who are exploring their trans identity will come into the shop and, you know, treat themselves to like a piece of jewelry or something that like affirms how they're feeling. And so I've really been trying to find those things for myself in my life as well. And honestly, like, piercings will be a part of that, I'm sure. Like, I know I want more piercings. But it's a consideration that I'm really trying to keep front of mind whenever I'm doing anything for myself, you know, like, whether it's wearing a particular shirt that day, I don't know, doing my hair a different way or whatever. I think it's really important to be able to identify what makes you feel the best about yourself, and then do yourself a favor and figure out a way to consistently do that for yourself. Sitting down with Leanne was a really great experience for me because I've known Leanne for a little while now, and I'm pretty sure that they're the first person that I had in my life who was using gender neutral pronouns. So they were kind of like my first exposure to that. And like also just talking to them about how frustrating it can be sometimes for there to be such binary ways of expressing ourselves, like ingrained in society in every way. It made me feel better about struggling with that myself sometimes. You know, it can be really hard when you don't identify with one of the binaries, because it permeates through our culture so absolutely. And luckily we are in a time now where things are changing. Like gender neutral washrooms are way more common than they used to be. Gender neutral change rooms and stuff like those are huge. huge changes. Because I do know that for myself personally, it's something that holds me back from going to certain places or like, playing certain sports. Um, because I know that I'm not at a place in my life where I'm going to feel comfortable in a male change room, and nor would I feel comfortable in a female change room. Um, so yeah, that's been like a really interesting thing to see kind of develop. And I mean, I'm really hopeful that it just continues. I feel like we are doing a lot of the right things. It just needs to keep going. Chatting with Lynn, I think the biggest thing that really stuck with me from that conversation was her approach to labels. Um, I don't know that I'd ever heard anyone talk about them the way that she does. And that was incredibly valuable to me. The concept that the labels we use are more for other people than ourselves makes perfect sense now that she's explained it to me that way. But just it wasn't something that I think I understood in that way before. I think for me personally, the episode with Sarah came at the perfect point in my journey because I was able to kind of develop like the foundations of the different ways I wanted to express myself and learn the different ways that I identify. Um, and then having the episode with Sarah where she showed me like all of the fun and exciting ways I could express myself through fashion, I got to act on these things. I got to experience what it would be like to like, I don't know, like it's like the whole dance like no one's watching. Like dress like no one's judging, because ultimately, like, who cares? Like, if if I want to wear this goofy, fun, brightly colored shirt that definitely belonged to um, someone from like the 60s, 70s, because it had shoulder pads that I cut out. Um, I'm gonna do it. It's something that makes me happy, and ultimately, like the vast majority of the attention I get for dressing a little bit more extravagantly or a little bit more flamboyantly, if you want to say that, um, is so positive. People people just like to see people like feeling themselves. Thank you so much for joining us throughout this series. I really hope that that there's at least one other person out there who got even half as much out of it as I did creating this series. This whole project really did hinge on wanting to tell the stories of the Edmonton trans community. But the side effect, or I guess the advantage to creating this project that I didn't entirely expect was that it's had a profound effect on my life and how I identify and present myself, and um, it has really been, I mean, I've described it throughout the project as this queer pressure cooker. And I mean, it just has been. It's been this wild catalyst for my own gender discovery, and it's really given me the confidence to experiment with things I wouldn't have before, commit to things that I've been wanting to do for years. This project has meant a lot to me, and I feel like that really does translate throughout the episodes. And so, yeah, I just hope that whoever's out there watching this, that they enjoy it as much as I did making it. And yeah, I just wanted to say thanks. It means a lot that you'd watch this series. This has been episode 6 and the final episode of season 1 of Gender. I Hardly Know Them. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.